Alright, what's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Tokenizer and I'm here to bring you guys in-depth news, analysis, and insights from the digital asset space, along with covering the progressive tokenization of the world. And if you haven't already, be sure to check out all my other content platforms at Tokenizer, or just head on over to tokenizer.network for everything linked in one spot, and as always, that'll be right down in the description below. So in today's video, I'm bringing back the series Trips Around the Token Economy. And this is basically where we just go for a chill, laid-back drive and have a fireside chat about everything going on in crypto, macro, and just basically everything that's happening around the world. And just before we get started, I just gotta remind everyone again real quick that I'm not a financial advisor, and therefore nothing you ever hear or read from me should be taken as any form of financial or investment advice. But now that we got that out of the way, let's get right into it. Alright, what's up everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Trips Around the Token Economy. So, since then, quite a lot has happened, I guess, regarding myself and of course regarding the overall crypto markets, with the biggest news probably being the, I don't want to say AllianceBlock hack because AllianceBlock wasn't the one that exactly got hacked, but the hack that involved the ALBT token. So many of you guys have seen that, and I've actually just given my personal review on it. Just basically like a quick overview on Twitter space I did with Greg and J Trades this morning. It was a really solid space. We basically did a crypto market update on pretty much all the big news that's happened over the past couple weeks to months. So it was like the Bank of England's digital or call for a digital pound, and then we talked about some more on Nostra and Damus, which are two applications that are actually utilizing the Bitcoin network. They're social platforms, so think Twitter except built on Bitcoin, pretty much. That's kind of the best way I can explain it. Oh, thank you. But yeah, so we did that. We also talked about some more on regulations, and then a bit on the gaming side with Immutable X, as that was kind of J Trade's focus. Now since then, so yeah, that was earlier this morning, and my kind of focus of it was, of course, the AllianceBlock hack. So I went over what exactly happened in the hack, and I'm not going to go over too in-depth on it here just because it'd be a bit redundant. I feel like I've been looking at all the information regarding the AllianceBlock hack for the past 2 days or so now. So yeah, we won't look at that, but the TLDR of it is pretty much that 113 million ALBT tokens were within the Bonk troves. So the troves inside Bonk are pretty much smart contracts that allow you to borrow BEUR, so that's the stablecoin within the Bonk ecosystem, against whatever asset you choose to collateralize on their platform. In this case, it was ALBT tokens. And basically, one of the oracles in there wasn't really audited right and had the wrong code. So it had this code that was get current value instead of this other one that was like get price, and then it basically you'd have to have the price be validated and confirmed for 20 minutes before it could be used again. But if you get current price, you can pretty much set the current price to whatever you want. I'm not a tech professional or a developer whatsoever, so that's kind of just what I'm getting out of it. But that's essentially how the hacker, planned their attack. And so, yeah, we've seen what's gone on with AllianceBlock and Bonk now, right? And I just want to make it really clear that this is an attack on Bonk and not AllianceBlock. It just so happened that AllianceBlock happened to be one of the tokens that were affected in this. There were actually other tokens that were kind of affected by this, such as the BNQ token and Bonk Euro, right? But of course those were affected as they were the underlying tokens on the platform, right? So pretty much they were messing around with the price, and they actually set the price of one ALBT token to $5 billion at one point. It's pretty crazy to think about, right? $5 billion per ALBT token. But yeah, so they did that, and pretty much with that, you could have just added 0.1 ALBT as your collateral towards your trove, right? Because at 20% collateral rate, if you so even if you put a very low collateral, or oh my god, I don't know what I'm saying. If you put a very small amount of collateral, the amount of bonk euro you could still mint would be an unreal amount, given the fact that the value of one ALBT was 5 billion, right? So at a 50% loan to collateralization rate, you could have hypothetically minted 2.5 billion bonk euro. So that would be $2.5 billion. So of course that really started sending things spiraling, and then in another transaction they actually sent the ALBT price to pretty much zero, which liquidated all the other troves in there. And pretty much how Bonk's ecosystem works is the last trove that gets left standing pretty much reaps the rewards from the other liquidated troves. So in return, 113 AllianceBlock tokens got liquidated. So that's kind of what happened. And so the team's trying to find a resolution to the issue right now, with the one that seems to be most likely being that they're actually going to make a new AllianceBlock token. So they're not going to, let's say, try and fix the current token, as it's kind of been a mess at the moment, and I think a lot of the tokens are still in the attacker's wallet. But they're actually going to, completely make a new ALBT token, much like how, if you were here in the 2017 days, Ethereum actually faced a really similar issue where one of their DAOs got hacked for a ton of ETH, and they pretty much made the new ETH token, which is why there's an ETH Classic, which I'm sure many of you guys have seen on the markets, right? There's ETC and then there's ETH. ETH, of course, being the main one. So if you're trying to buy into Ethereum, it's ETH, not ETC. ETC is ETH Classic. I don't even know if there's anything going on ETH Classic right now, but yeah, just wanted to put that out there. So it seems like they're going to be making a new token, and they'll take a snapshot of all the balances right before the attack, and pretty much airdrop users the new tokens. And one large issue was that a bunch of people were trading during the time of this event, right? Like when the crash was happening, some people were panic selling, some people were like, now's my chance to buy the dip. So it's a lot of chaos. And so how they plan to go about reimbursing users that had bought ALBT tokens after or during the time of event, the team has actually said they'll be paying up to 15 million tokens out of their own pockets to the people affected by the trading halt, and also people that were liquidated by the troves. So major hats off to AllianceBlock. I've spoken to Rashid live once, but off the record multiple times, and he's just a really great stand-up guy. And I think I can say the same for all of the guys at AllianceBlock, that they're really passionate people in this space that are trying to build something real, something that'll last in this space. And honestly, they have all my respect. Like, I know we're supposed to be emotionless when we're investing in this space, and of course I stick to that, but with what AllianceBlock is doing, how they've been building through the bull and the bear, and pretty much how hard we've seen them try and fix this current issue, and not just be like, fuck, well, there goes all our hard work that we've spent so long building through the bull and bear. It's beautiful to see. And, as I said, major hats off to them. So I'm with AllianceBlock in terms of, minor setback for a major comeback. Maybe you don't think this is a minor setback. Maybe you think it's a major setback. But to me, in the grand scheme of things, given all that they've done previous to this, I think they'll make it out just fine. But I think with that said, that's not to say AllianceBlock is completely off the hook in terms of accountability. I think there was a little bit of what's the word for it? Maybe a lack of due diligence on their end in terms of confirming a partnership with Bonk, and making sure that it's up to the security standards that AllianceBlock normally works with, right? One big part of AllianceBlock is being regulated, right? Being regulated and being secure. And I guess those two things don't exactly go hand in hand, but there's going to be security, and I don't mean what's a security versus what's a utility token, but like to be secure, right? There's going to be security standards for the forward development of the space, I think, because when you're sending economic value like this, where there's actually value and it's not just bytes of data, you need to make sure that the proper frameworks and security standards are being set so that stuff like this doesn't happen on the regular, right? And, well, as we've seen in the crypto space, this stuff might as well happen on the regular. Like, there's always some sort of crash or whatever. But yeah, with that said, that's, about all I've got about the AllianceBlock thing. Of course, this is a very unfortunate case that probably no one saw coming. And I guess to add to that, I actually interviewed the chief tokenomist of Bonk a while back when I was in Hong Kong, and of course this was before the hack. So one reason I was so keen on this specific project was that the core team in there, so their CTO Mike Haroon and their chief tokenomist who I interviewed, Michael Bacchia, they were both actually core parts of the Energy Web team, which of course we discuss a lot about. And so Mike Haroon was actually their CTO and Michael Bacchia was their chief tokenomist. So obviously going into Bonk and looking at the project, I had pretty high hopes for it initially. And I guess I should also point out that their CEO, Delia, I can't remember her last name at the moment, but she actually worked in risk management at BlackRock for I think like 6 years or something. So that's really saying a lot from just their core team, right? So again, really high hopes for the project, and going into it, I was really excited to see that they collaborated with AllianceBlock, and pretty much just to see this happen shortly after my interview. I mean, I was kind of sad, to be honest, because I was like, dang, I didn't even get a chance to publish that interview yet. And maybe it's for the best I didn't yet, but for the time being, I'm still really excited to see how AllianceBlock bounces back from this. And I'm still going to be looking at Bonk and seeing how they recover from this, because obviously this was a really big technical issue, and this wasn't a issue due to lack of demand or workflow or whatever, right? This was negligence, essentially. And maybe the right word wasn't a lack of work. Maybe the right term wasn't a lack of work, but it's more it wasn't a malicious attack, right? It wasn't like the team had ill intentions or something, but it's more like almost like they didn't give a shit, which I don't want to say is worse, but it's pretty bad, right? I'm not saying they didn't give a shit about the project, but I'm just saying they kind of rushed through it and everything. And I think a reason for that is because Mike Haroon, their CTO, who's obviously the one behind all the tech and everything at Bonk, he was also the CTO of Energy Web, right? So he probably was used to having, people on the lower end of the tech and software side do all the audits and check for him. Whereas when he was the CTO for Bonk and, he didn't have, as their team was still much smaller, right? They didn't have the lower end developers or anything. It was, as far as I know, just the three of them. I'm sure there were probably, some others that were helping, but definitely not to the extent of what Energy Web had in terms of people working for them on the software side, right? So I think with that, Micah just potentially took a quick look and he's like, yep, this looks good, and started up Bonk. So very unfortunate case, but it is what it is, and we'll have to see how it goes from here. Now, regarding some other news, I feel I'm just taking a lot of the stuff Greg, JT, and I discussed on our space today, but we saw Secure Asset Transfer Protocol, SATP, which was formerly known as ODAP, officially be put in working group at the IETF, which is massive to see, right? I mean, a lot of us have been looking and talking about Quant since the ODAP days, when it was called Open Digital Asset Protocol. So to see it, now formulate into an official working group at the IETF, where it's not just a concept now, but there's official development for it and further progressions around use cases and different parameters of how they're gonna, really build out and standardize SATP as an internet standard. That's massive. It's absolutely massive. And I mean, we've seen some of the people that are on board with this, right? We've seen IBM, we've seen Intel, we've seen potentially the Bank for International Settlements, given their showing of API gateways in some of their CBDC white papers. So really exciting stuff. And honestly, I think this might be one of the most exciting things that I've seen from Quant since when? There's a lot of exciting things that have happened for Quant, but this is definitely, really high up the ladder. I gotta say, some of the stuff that Greg had initially dug up with Meta was really eye-opening to see too. But I guess it wasn't as officialized as this, right? Like, this has Quant's name all over it, whereas with what happened with Meta, that was a lot of connecting the dots to potential entities that were using Quant. Oh, wow. I really messed up this park job. This is embarrassing. Oh, man. How can I fix this? Yeah, that didn't fix it. Okay. Well, this is bad. But yeah, definitely one of the most exciting things for Quant. I guess LackChain also went live this year, so that's pretty massive as well. I guess that hasn't been quite talked about as much since, I mean, a lot of us were talking a lot about this all through last year. So officially seeing it live, and you can actually go to the LackChain page and check their block explorer, which I think is really cool to see. And you can actually find hints of Quant Network there, so definitely do check it out if you're interested. Now, I'm actually parked down at the library right now, about to get some work done. I'm really hoping to finish the script for my Energy Web deep dive as soon as possible. I wouldn't say I've been putting it off by any means, but I've just been finding so much stuff from the Energy Web ecosystem that I'm like, I gotta add this in there, and it's really just piled up. So I guess on the bright side, this Energy Web deep dive is really gonna be information packed. On the downside, it might take a minute for me to fully put together and everything. But yeah, so hope you guys are enjoying this episode so far, and once I'm back, or once they kick me out of the library when they close, I'll be back to discuss more with you guys. Anyways, hope you guys are enjoying as usual. Peace. Alright, what's up everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Trips Around the Token Economy. So, this episode that I'm compiling up right now, I'd imagine might be a little bit of a, I don't want to call it a mess, but it's definitely going to be a little more disorganized than some of our previous episodes, as you guys might have realized, we're just compiling different days together and compiling it into one episode. So, hopefully it's still entertaining and informative for you guys to watch. So currently today, I believe it's February 13th, 2023. The markets are, again, still not doing too much. We're still trading around the same range, waiting for kind of a catalyst to swing the market either way. But as you guys know, the research continues every day, and there's always new stuff to research. You're never going to get done learning about everything in the market. So that's kind of what we're doing, and maybe the market isn't the right word, but this space as a whole, because beyond the whole financial market side of thing, of course, there's a lot developing that maybe markets wouldn't be the best way to describe it as, you know, there's a lot of things like different players coming into the space and building where it doesn't directly affect the markets in the short run, but over time it definitely does play a role in kind of the value capture of this space. So I think last time we were talking up on the AllianceBlock Hack, and then I think I mentioned something about SATP in regards to it being an official working group within the IETF now, which is of course massive, and I think I was just raving on about how that's probably the most exciting thing that's happened for Quant in quite a minute. So yeah, some exciting stuff happening in this space as always. I don't think there's ever a boring day in crypto. Like, I don't think I've woken up since I've gotten into crypto at any given day where throughout that whole day there was just no news whatsoever of stuff going on in crypto. Like, maybe not just crypto, but distributed ledger technology as a whole. And that's kind of the beauty of being in a space so early, right? Everyone's trying to develop the next big thing and build the next best solution. That there's always going to be some news within the day to talk about. So, you know, definitely can't be taking that for granted, as I really do think over time that it is going to mellow out to a more consistent standpoint to where, you know, maybe there's not news every day, or maybe the space just becomes so standardized that a lot of the stuff that we're seeing exciting developing now just becomes, you know, regular everyday things. So definitely enjoy the moments while we can. But anyways, yeah, so as I said, today is February 13th. This morning I just got done presenting the Energy Web overview to our Discord community at ChainStats, where it was on my show Tea Time with Token, which, as you guys know, is the weekly show I host on there that's focused around fundamentals in the DLT space, and not just regarding crypto, but I mean, we look at a lot of different things. We've looked into R3, we've looked into SIX, we've looked into Hyperledger, we've looked into the Blockchain Research Institute. And so these are all different consortiums that, of course, do have some crypto, I don't even want to call them crypto members, but players that are building in the crypto space that are aligned with these different initiatives and consortiums, right? So of course, as many of you guys already know, we're not just focused on crypto, but we're focused on the technology and the connections in this space as a whole, to where we look at who's connected to what and what players are working with who. So that's kind of a big focus in terms of something that, I don't want to say something that we do, but the kind of content we go around creating, right? I really like to think that we've kind of developed this niche and specialty of, you know, connecting different entities together within the DLT space to see who's working with who and see who's connected to these regulated ecosystems. And so those are kind of the ones that we regularly talk about, right? Such as like Quant, ISO, the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, XDC, Morpheus Network, Energy Web Token, Casper Labs, etc. I don't know if you guys can hear right now, but it is hailing like crazy here right now. Like, I feel like each piece of hail dropping on my windshield at the moment is the size of like a dime. So I apologize if there's loud crackling noises. My windshield wipers are working their asses off to make sure I don't, make sure I'm able to see and not crash into a pole or something. So yeah, classic West Coast Canada weather. You guys know how it be. So yeah, as I was mentioning, I did the Energy Web overview today with the ChainStats community, and I'm actually just in the middle of finishing cutting it up. Well, maybe not in the middle. I'm driving right now, so I really shouldn't be editing videos as I'm driving, of course. So a better way to put that is I just got done editing up the video and, making it content quality to put on YouTube and everything. It's currently being uploaded to YouTube at the moment, and once I'm home, I'm probably gonna, title it, give it a thumbnail. That reminds me, I do have to make a thumbnail for the video. But yeah, make a thumbnail and everything so that I can, post it as an official video on YouTube. And a lot of you guys might be thinking, Token, is this the Energy Web Deep Dive? It's not. I know I've been hinting at the Energy Web Deep Dive for a while. I'm just putting the kind of finishing touches to that at the moment in terms of organizing the content. As if you guys haven't seen, there's a Spotify series called Caught in the Energy Web. It's a Spotify podcast that's hosted by some of the members in the Energy Web ecosystem. So there's Gator Green, Neo Lawyer, and Ardian, who are the hosts of the Caught in the Energy Web podcast. And it's an amazing podcast. Like, I really like how they structure it and kind of go about their conversations. They manage to stay really well on topic in regards to covering everything Energy Web. And yeah, if you guys haven't checked it out and are interested in learning more about Energy Web, I highly suggest checking out Caught in the Energy Web. I'll be sure to link it down somewhere below, and I actually did give them a shout out on my Twitter, so you guys could probably find that there too. But yeah, just if you're interested, type Caught in the Energy Web on your Spotify browser, and I'm sure it'll be one of the first to pop up. But yeah, this is not the Energy Web Deep Dive in regards to the video you guys are going to see coming out shortly. But actually, that video is probably going to come out before you guys hear this audio. So, I mean, you guys get the point, right? What I'm saying is the Energy Web overview is going to be different from the Energy Web Deep Dive. Why did I merge in this lane? Man, I'm an idiot. Oh my god. It's like peak traffic hour right now, and we are just not moving at all in this merge lane. The lights here are terrible, guys. It's like they don't sync the lights up, so the second your light goes green, the light in front of you is going to go red right away, and that causes a bunch of traffic inefficiencies as it's going on right now. I wish I could show you guys, but I unfortunately can't. But yeah, I think I've mentioned it more than a few times in these series that driving here just absolutely sucks. But back on point, the Energy Web overview, there are some snippets of things I've discussed in the Energy Web introduction that are in there, just kind of as a memory refresher, in addition to some parts of the Energy Web Deep Dive that I've stuck in there, just kind of as like a sneak peek into what's to come, right? So in addition to that, there were also some recent findings of Energy Web connections that I had put in there, such as their ties with BlackRock and Rockefeller, which I also did a thread on Twitter if anyone wants to just do a quick read up on that. Basically talking about the connections with, of course, Energy Web's founder, Rocky Mountain Institute, to BlackRock and Rockefeller. We know BlackRock has actually shouted out Energy Web during their partnership with Coinbase, saying they're looking for more green solutions to Bitcoin as a whole, and of course saying Energy Web is one of the few blockchain projects that are working on this initiative. So that's always great to see when you have BlackRock backing your project, right? And then some connections with the Rockefellers, which for those who don't know, the Rockefellers are pretty much one of the richest families in the world. At one point, I think this was during 1912, John D. Rockefeller, he owned 90% of all the oil in the United States at one point. So just think about that for a moment. 90% of all the oil in the United States. I mean, that's an unreal amount, right? That's crazy to even think about, that amount of wealth. So yeah, that really goes to show you, how dominant some of these families were at one point. And of course, it's not just the Rockefellers that kind of have this power, right? You guys hear about all the other families like the Vanderbilts, the Rothschilds, etc. And these are kind of the entities that we want to see the projects we talk about tied to, right? Of course, regarding the Rockefellers, we know Quant also has some ties to that from their advisor, Guy Dietrich. So again, just one of the many reasons why I'm so bullish on Quant, and of course now Energy Web. You can feel however you want about these families and these large standard-setting bodies and non-governmental organizations in terms of, they're trying to control the world. They're trying to create this really weird hierarchy, and they just want global dominance. But, at the end of the day, those guys are kind of who have all the say in terms of what's going to happen in the world and the narrative. So, of course, while we don't feel great about them morally, investments are where we take out all of our kind of morals and ethics, and logic completely guides our decisions, right? So, of course, not financial advice of any sorts, but just putting that out there. That's how I'm personally going about investing in this space, simply put. Oh my goodness, the hill is picking up more. You guys can definitely hear that now, right? Like, it's not even like, they're not even forming the raindrops anymore. They're just like hitting my car, and they're just sticking as like little balls of white. It's like snow, except a lot harder than snow. I really don't want to go outside now, because I know once I go outside, the hail's going to be hitting me, and it's not going to be fun. I'm going to get wet. I'm going to get cut because the hail is sharp. And but oh well, I should stop complaining. People got bigger things to deal with. And what else was I going to talk about? I guess since I was talking about the Energy Web ecosystem, one thing I will add to that is, they've seen a fair amount of development over the past few months in the bear market. Maybe not quite as much as certain other projects, but it's definitely a really solid, consistent amount. So they've had some further ties with the Japanese economy and having the Japanese energy exchange connect to the Energy Web ecosystem. And then they've also actually been added to Hyperledger, which, is, again, really great to see. We always talk about Hyperledger here, and we're big fans of Hyperledger. And I don't know if many of you guys know, but Hyperledger is actually a fan of us and the content we do, as they've shouted out some of the maps we've made in regards to their part of the DLT ecosystem. So that's something I've, been really flattered to see for quite a while now. A couple of years ago, I was just researching and reading up Hyperledger's website almost every day, learning about all their different products, all their different partners, and kind of how and why they've chosen these specific partners to help with building out the frameworks of Hyperledger. So to see them kind of give a shout out to the work that we've done and the connections we've made, I mean, man, it's just really come full circle. So Energy Web, also a part of Hyperledger now, really great to see. They're helping them with kind of Web3 interoperability with different energy solutions and digital identities, especially with Hyperledger Firefly. That's one of their Hyperledger products, so really cool to see. And one thing we do know about Hyperledger Firefly is that they are actually adopting SATP, so formerly ODAP, right? They're adopting SATP within their frameworks, which is massive to see, because not only is that super bullish for Quant, but that's seeing Energy Web helping with Hyperledger Firefly's interoperability solutions, but then having them also be SATP compliant, that kind of makes you think, right? And a thread I did recently post regarding the Energy Web ecosystem was, it wasn't just about the Energy Web ecosystem, but it was tying in Quant with Energy Web, which some of you guys are probably thinking, whoa, those two don't have a partnership, or those two are in completely different sectors. I don't think Gilbert and Jesse even talk with each other. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they did talk with each other. But we managed to find some ties that tie to ISO TC307 within the Energy Web ecosystem, which pretty interesting, right? We already saw the kind of Rockefeller connections on that end, as I just explained recently. But with TC307, this was a connection with one of the electrical, and I don't think it was electrical engineering, but telecommunications standardizing unions within the EU. one of the core members in the Energy Web team is actually a member within that consortium. And that consortium has come out, shown their full support for TC307, even saying it's going to be a joint standard between them and some other unions they work with. So that's pretty massive. And then the same guy, his name's Ionis, I can't remember his last name, but he was actually also a member of the energy working group within INAPA. And we've talked about INAPA a lot too, right? They also work closely with Hyperledger, and they work as kind of this consortium for public and private developers in the space to work with regulators and policymakers. So that's always good to see, kind of, projects building in the space that get to work closely with regulators. MICA had a really big role working with the development in MICA regarding the EU, for example. But so seeing more connections between the two is really cool to see, and there are a couple more connections which I won't spoil all of them now, as I do want to save some of these for the Energy Web deep dive. But yeah, that's about what I'll say in regards to those connections. Now, I'm actually at the grocery store at the moment. Oh, shit. I don't know what happened there. But I'm at the grocery store. I'm about to pick up some things before I head back home. So, I'm going to head in and hopefully avoid as much of the hail as possible. But until then, I hope you guys are enjoying this and getting some good value out of it, as always. But let's talk soon. Peace. Alright, what's good, everyone? We are back again with another segment of trips around the token economy. I don't know how many days I've compiled into one episode at this point. I think this is about day number 3 of filming this Oh shit. Have we hit a cat? What the hell is that? Okay, well, it's a weird start to this segment. I'm just backing out of my driveway, and I thought I hit a cat, but fortunately we did not hit a cat. That'd be bad. But yeah, we're back for day number 3 of trips around the token economy. We'll see what we talk about today. There honestly isn't all too much news going on with the market at the moment. Everything's staying pretty stagnant. We did get the CPI report this morning, 0.2 points higher than we had expected, but last I checked, the market seemed like it didn't care. Everything looked green, so there's that. And we'll have to see how the rest of that plays out, of course. A little bit of green now doesn't mean anything, as usually with a higher impact inflation report, we do usually tend to trend back down as people start to risk off a little more. What are you doing, dude? Why are you just in the middle of the road like that? But yeah, so we'll have to see what happens. I can't imagine the market would be that bullish with a higher than expected inflation print, but wow, traffic is really bad right now. But aside from that, I really don't think there's much news going on at the moment. In terms of narratives, of course, AI is still a really strong narrative, and I think it'll continue to be that way for the next little bit, as people are really just starting to wrap their heads around just how big AI is going to be in terms of different parts of it that's going to be integrated in just about every single industry. As AI can really target everything. Finance, you can have AI trading algorithms. Healthcare, you can have AI-based healthcare advice once that gets a little more advanced. Of course, that's further down the line, and I think even regarding blockchain and healthcare, that's probably a little further down the line, as if you think with finances, blockchain is going to take a while to integrate, well, healthcare is going to take even longer, because yes, you could argue how the finance industry is of course bigger than the healthcare industry, but when we're talking about the impact of it, and especially different procedures to go around if something does go wrong, well, in finance, sure, you're maybe absolute worst case scenario, the financial system kind of takes a hit, but like we've been through that countless times throughout history, right? We always find a way to kind of print ourselves back to that middle ground of being okay. But if something messes up in healthcare, I mean, you could have thousands of people, and this is putting it lightly, but thousands of people dying or, you know, getting some really bad, I don't want to say disease, but let's just say stuff that's not good for the benefit of their health. And again, that's a very small scale example. It could go much worse, and I'm sure I don't have to explain that. Another facet of AI and everything IoT and machine learning that's been really popular, and I'm glad to say we've been talking about this for a while now, but the concept of smart cities. As you know, we talked about a lot about this when we were really focusing in on Quant and Constellation's partnership in building for smart cities. I still think that's one of the coolest partnerships out there. I know not much development has happened on that end the past little bit, and I do think that's, wow, what is going on with traffic here? Oh my goodness. That's crazy. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. Okay, back on point. With AI and smart cities, to be precise, you know, that's a really, really big concept. So kind of, for those who don't know what smart cities are, they are kind of around some places in the world. I know Japan has like one or two of them, and then I'd imagine some places like Singapore are probably looking into it, but essentially it's like IoT in every segment of one specific city. So let's say all the houses are connected, for example, and then the roads are connected. Just think very cyberpunk, futuristic kind of cities. So what this allows for is a perfect understanding between the whole, if you think of a city as an ecosystem, which it really is, really think about that for a second. Each city is like its own ecosystem. So you're basically interconnecting an ecosystem further together so that, you know, the cars understand the lights on the road, and then each house understands each other. So this actually ties beyond what Quant is. Why are you not going? Oh my God. I'm going to be stuck here forever. But back on point. What Energy Web is doing is actually one part of smart city development that I think could play a role with in the future, because if you think about it, if all the houses are interconnected together, it would also make sense to have their energy distributions and kind of energy data being shared between each other, right? So that you can optimally distribute the energy that's being generated and kind of balance the grid further. So I don't know how we exactly got to Energy Web. I mean, I kind of do. We were talking about AI, and we talked about Quant and Constellation's partnership for smart cities, and then we wandered off into the Energy Web. So yeah, you know, AI, I think, is going to continue being a narrative for quite a while. I do think the hype is going to die down inevitably with everything. I mean, like, we saw the hype with DeFi, we saw the hype with NFTs, and there was hype with other things. I mean, like, the whole Binance ecosystem was really hyped up at one point. And, you know, some of those things are, some of those narratives are definitely sustainable. Like NFTs, for example. NFTs are going to have a lot of utility in the future. But just at the moment, with everything being, you know, just digital pixels, that's not the way NFTs are going to be long term. NFTs can be so much more than that. It doesn't do the asset class justice. I mean, verifiable credentials are just one of them. So think of things like your passports, your IDs, etc. Those things essentially are NFTs. And then, you know, not to get too controversial, but the COVID passports, as many of you guys around the world probably had to use for a little while, those were essentially NFTs. Like here in British Columbia, Canada, I believe our COVID passports were actually used on Hyperledger. Like that's kind of how they were issued and the back end of how they were distributed and everything. So really interesting to see, like pretty much my home, well, it's not a town, but the province where I was born in using Hyperledger. And if you go on the Hyperledger website and look at their members, you actually see the Ministry of British Columbia, which is BC, the place where I'm at right now talking to you guys in Canada. The Ministry of BC is actually one of the members within the Hyperledger Foundation. So I found that super interesting, and of course I'm going to be keeping a close eye on what they're doing and collaborating with Hyperledger on. But in terms of some recent news regarding me, because there's not all too much news going on in the markets at the moment besides different narratives popping up, I was doing the Energy Web overview with the guys at ChainStats. I feel like I might have talked about this yesterday, so I apologize if this is redundant now. I'll probably find out as I'm editing the audio, but let's just hope I didn't talk about this yesterday. But yeah, we were doing an overview on Tea Time, the show I host on ChainStats, and basically looking over some of the things with Energy Web beyond the introduction, but not quite at a deep dive level yet. So as you guys know, we like to organize our content from a basic introduction to the project, basically talking about the very surface level things of their team, tokenomics, partnerships, use cases, etc. And then in the deep dive, we go a lot more in depth and really hone in on the connections within the projects to large industry players, right? Because that's kind of what's going to make a project stick long term in this space. With so much going on, a big focus is going to be on who are the projects that are regulated and who are the projects that are connected to the ones regulating. So we look a lot into that kind of stuff, and so this Energy Web overview we did on Tea Time was kind of a mix of both of those. That is actually up on YouTube at the moment now, so for those of you who are curious and want to get a little sneak peek of the Energy Web deep dive, or just a little memory refresher plus a little extra bit of goods compared to the Energy Web introduction, definitely be sure to check that out. I just uploaded it this morning, and right now I'm continuing to work on my Energy Web deep dive. I'm also putting together the pitch deck and white paper for ChainStats, which I'm really excited to tell you guys. We're very close to our next milestone of launching our official white paper, pitch deck, and our website. I can't give out all too much information on that at the moment yet, of course, as a lot of the stuff we're still working on and some of the things aren't finalized, but I think you guys are really going to like it. Of course, me being the, fundamental focused researcher, there's a lot of points and use cases within the ChainStats application that are going to be revolved around for fundamental users like us, where we're not quite looking as much into the market data, but we're looking at the data between different wallets and connecting different entities together, such as what I did with the Quant and Constellation, or not Quant and LCX transactions. I'm going to pause this real quick because I'm going to go through a drive-through and get a little beverage. So I hope you guys are enjoying this. Alright, so we got our beverage, got a little smoothie with an extra scoop of creatine. So now we're good to go. I think we were talking about ChainStats, right? I was talking about the white paper and the pitch deck. So, the application. So yeah, there were a lot of fundamental focus aspects and tools that I really pushed the development team for to, emphasize on being sure to add those to the application, as I think that'll be really key to, truly unlocking more use cases out of on-chain data. Because, at the moment, on-chain data really is on-chain data and on-chain analysis and anything around those terms. When people think of that, they specifically think for technical analysis and kind of data to get you an advantage on the markets in a trader's perspective, and much less from a researcher perspective in terms of connecting different entities together and things. And honestly, you can't really blame them with all the current on-chain software applications out, such as like Glassnodes, Crypto Quant, etc. Those kinds, those are really geared towards technical analysis at the moment, or at least pairing it with technical analysis. And there's just not an application out there yet that's focused on I don't want to say focus, but has the inclusivity of adding fundamental, maybe not fundamental data, but data that you can easily access for fundamental research purposes. Like, for example, I talk about this a fair bit, but the Quant transactions I dug up and the LCX transactions I dug up, man, those were a lot of fun to dig into and just, find the different I guess they weren't different transactions. They were different transactions, but they were all the same amounts, just to different entities, but exact same amount, which was really interesting to see. So, of course, that was really interesting to find and just go down that rabbit hole on, but Etherscan is not the way to do it. Like, it's horrible. I probably had like 70 something tabs open, all of Etherscan, and probably like 200 something screenshots. And that was over the course of like 2 to 3 days, where I was just endlessly digging through these transactions. So there has to be an easier way to do it, right? And maybe not even easier, but just a way that's more efficient, which is just one of the few things we're going to be adding to ChainStats down the line. So, for example, one thing I figured that make it much easier is if I could look for those transactions, but filter them only to X amount of QNT tokens and up, which would take out all the other small transactions that you wouldn't need to see, but would be taking up a lot of data and space, right? So, yeah, that's about all I'll share regarding some fundamental additions to ChainStats at the moment. But yeah, been working on that for the past little bit. We've had a couple other breakthrough ideas that we really think will, help with creating further value of the data we provide in ChainStats. So just going over some of the other things, correcting other points before we really set it out public to you guys. And then I'm also working on this new Quant video, which we haven't really talked too much about lately, right? Like, we've really been focused on like Morpheus Network, Casper, Energy Web Token, and those three have mainly been our focus lately, and that's just been Quant's kind of been grinding in the background, right? So we haven't heard all too much from them, but recently we've heard about SATP being officialized in a working group, which is, as I've said multiple times throughout this video, absolutely massive. And then we also have some data that I've been finding regarding the adoption of ISO TC307. This was back in like any time around 2016 to 2020, but these are just parts of some Chinese documents I found that are really showing China's support of ISO TC307. So I figured, let's compile all this together and look at how big the standards Quant has been setting over all this time are. So, yeah, I just thought of that idea yesterday. So I'm just in the midst of putting that idea to, at the very least, a script to make it, content quality. But I think I'll probably be finishing the Energy Web deep dive first before I pour the majority of my efforts in that Quant video, as I've been talking about the Energy Web deep dive for a little bit now, and I figured I shouldn't delay it much longer. But yeah, that's about all I have for now. I've got some other work with some collaborative stuff, but I'll let you guys know about that more so in the next video. As for now, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I think now would be a good time to end off this episode of Trips Around the Token Economy. It's been compiled, I think, 3 days worth of talking. Well, over the course of 3 days. So, yeah. As always, remember to keep learning and stay safe. And I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.